I've started this new thing where I'm doing the bios after and then adding them in. So I'm going to skip that portion and just dive into the conversation.
Sounds like a plan.
I think it's a little more organic that way somehow.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll follow your lead.
Okie doke. And I do all of the
Editing.
audio. Thank you.
Oh.
Audio editing myself. I couldn't think of the noun. So if you need to stop for whatever reason or you want to rephrase something, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you. That's great.
Or if we lose Wi-Fi or something, I don't know.
Okay.
I just like to set a timer, stopwatch thing.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Welcome to Permission to Heal. I am Marci Brockman, and I am thrilled that you're here. And I am very happy to welcome Lauren Kaufman. How are you, Lauren?
Hi, Marci. I am good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on to Permission to Heal. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Thank you. Me too. And it's been a long school day for both of us. So
yes, it has. As you can see, I'm still at school. I had, my school meetings, and this is actually a quiet place right now for me to do this podcast. So it's perfect.
Excellent. Excellent. So I begin each interview with 6 quick questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What 6 words would you use to describe yourself?
Okay. So I would say that I'm passionate. I am dedicated. I am motivated. I am collaborative. I am creative and reflective.
Wow. Excellent. All adjectives. Yeah.
Yes.
Some people pick nouns. People pick verbs. I'm like, I wouldn't think that you could do that, but you can,
Yeah. Well, I like to write, so I usually write with a lot of adjectives.
It makes sense. Makes sense. Although I did read something about Stephen King as an author hates adverbs.
Really?
That he thinks that they're unnecessary. Using too many of them, he thinks is, like the bane of his existence or something.
Now I'm going to have to check my writing to see how many adverbs I use.
I like adverbs.
Yeah, me too. There's nothing wrong with a good adverb.
Peculiar. I don't know.
Yes.
Just flew into my head. All right. Number 2, what is your favorite way to spend a day?
Well, right now, I would say that my favorite way to spend the day is probably on the beach. I live right by the beach with a good book and some relaxation. But I have to throw in there that I do love watching my 2 boys play sports. And so that gives me a lot of, I have a lot of pride when watching them. So I enjoy that too.
What sports do they play? They're young. They're like, 11 and 9, I think you said?
Yes. They'll actually be 10 and 12 soon in June. Right now, they're heavy into baseball season. We're on travel baseball. We're on Little League baseball. My boys were just so excited to get out and play sports again after the pandemic. Now that things are opening up, they're just so happy to be with their friends. So nothing makes me happier than seeing my kids happy. So that's what matters to me right now, to see all kids happy, not just my kids.
Excellent. Well, maybe you do the beach in the morning and then you go watch some baseball games.
Yes. And I'd also, to throw in there, I'd love to start traveling again. My favorite place in the world is California, and I would love to go there to LA to visit a friend soon. I'm planning to do that. So.
Well, I hope you get to go. That's awesome.
Me too.
I certainly miss pretty much being anywhere but inside my house.
Exactly. We'll take anywhere.
I go to school and I come home, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. You're not alone.
No, I'm sure that's what we're all doing now. It's
exactly.
Crazy. It's crazy. Let's tackle number 3. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Wow. So the first that came to mind was going to Nunley's with my grandfather. Nunley's was an amusement park in Baldwin in Long Island, New York.
Okay.
It no longer exists, but actually the Ferris wheel from Nunley's is now in Island Park by Bridgeview. And I get to kind of reminisce every time I pass that area. There's like a little shopping center there too, where I do my food shopping, and I see the Ferris wheel there as like a landmark.
Nice.
And the carousel from Nunley's is by Nassau Community College. So it's nice because I get to bring my kids there now. That was the same carousel I used to go on as a child. But I just have
That's
the fondest
cool.
memories of my grandfather, David, taking me to Nunley's. He was my buddy. And we used to spend the day there, go on rides, eat lunch, have ice cream. And
Nice.
it was a ritual and a routine. So
I
favorite
love
memory.
that.
Yes.
That's fabulous. I
Thank
can
you.
just totally picture that, you know.
Aw,
It's like
me
so
too.
iconic, you know. Little
It
girl and her
is.
grandpa, ice cream and a Ferris wheel. It's cool. I like that.
Thank you.
What is your favorite meal?
Oh my gosh.
Hard to choose,
Okay,
right?
so it is so hard to choose because I love food so much. Food is like a social event for me,
Sure.
and I will pretty much try anything except for a few things. But lately, I've gotten really into Mexican food. I love a good burrito or a good
Hmm.
taco, some guacamole and chips. But a close second would have to be sushi. I love sushi.
Yeah,
So.
me too. Me too. There's a Mexican place we've been ordering in from throughout the pandemic that makes these great fish tacos that I
Ooh.
just love. And then, of course, there's the sushi place, and you know, you've got my favorite things there.
Listen, you
Fabulous.
can't go wrong with a good taco because
No,
even if I had to live on one thing for the rest of my life, you could put anything in a taco. You could have a
right.
breakfast taco or burrito, lunch, dinner,
Yeah, exactly. You can
fill
put
it with
any
anything.
combination of anything.
Exactly.
Exactly. When the kids were little, I used to call them kitchen sink tacos, which
Oh,
would mean anything that we had in the house, like throw in the kitchen sink, basically, you know, as a
I love
metaphor.
it. I love
And
it.
so whatever was loose that we could throw in a tortilla, we did.
There you go. And I'm
There you
sure
go.
it was fabulous.
And they like building them and making a mess, and it's
Yeah,
always
it's
fun.
fun. It's fun. I like to build my own too.
Absolutely.
That's why I have to switch to fajitas sometimes if I'm in the mood to make it myself. So,
Yeah, yeah, because then you definitely can do it yourself.
yes,
I always get
exactly.
nervous when they bring that sizzling little
Uh,
skillet. I almost said skittle.
yes.
Skillet over, and I'm always afraid. You know, they're like, it's hot. No kidding, it's hot. It's
Yeah.
steaming and sizzling, and
But it's part of the whole effect, the whole
yeah,
ambiance of going to a Mexican restaurant. It's like the sizzling fajitas,
right.
margaritas, a little bit of everything.
Margarita. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, number 5. What is your what? Well, let's try that again. What one piece of advice would you like to give your younger self?
Oh gosh, this was a hard one because I always think, Lauren, if you can go back to well, it depends what self, like your kid self versus your teen self versus your 20 self. And then there's your 30 self. I'm 40 now. So, I have like my different stages of what I would tell myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the biggest one for me is, like turning 40 felt really good. I know some people think that's scary, but one of the reasons I love it is that I am who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I have my strengths, I have my areas for growth. I kind of own what I'm not good at. I own what I love, and I'm me. So I guess I would tell myself just be who you are and
Right.
don't be afraid what others think and give yourself grace. You're not going to
Absolutely.
be perfect. You're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn from your mistakes. And that's why we are who we are because we've made so many mistakes throughout our lives. We're
Right.
human.
We've made choices that have worked out or they
Mm-hmm.
haven't, but either way, we learn something and hopefully grow from them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I felt the same way about 40. I felt really comfortable in my own skin. I
Mm-hmm.
had just gotten divorced and I'd started a whole new life and I was really in a good place. But 50 was hard to swallow. I'm not looking forward to 53. 52 was okay.
Well, you look wonderful. It's
It
just
is
a
what it
number.
is.
It's just
Oh,
a
it's just a number, right?
It really
And
is.
not everyone is guaranteed to age. So I'm
Exactly.
trying to be
Look,
zen about it.
there are people that get better with age. Beauty
Oh,
is
and I
from the
definitely
inside out,
am, but
you know.
it still flips me out because if I close my eyes, I feel like I'm about 34.
Okay. 34.
And then I look in the mirror and I'm like, yeah, 34. But I remember my grandmother saying the same thing. She was 89 and she said that when she first wakes up in the morning, before she even opens her eyes, before she moves a muscle, that half asleep brain, she feels like she's about 28. And then she moves and she's like, oh, not 28. She tries to get up and she's moving. She's like, the body is not 28. And then she looks in the mirror in the bathroom and she doesn't know how to reconcile the 89-year-old face staring at her when she feels 28 in her brain. And I never understood. I was like, oh, Grandma, you're just so weird, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And now I get it. I mean, I'm not anywhere near 89, but I get it. The disconnect is weird.
That must be such a strange feeling, because it's like your heart doesn't change, you know,
Right.
like who you are on the inside. You stay the same and you carry all of your experiences with you and they become a part of who you are. You have so many stories and you can really live in those moments as if they were yesterday, those vibrant moments, those significant moments in time, you know, stay with you. So that must be a surreal type of experience.
I would imagine so.
Yes.
Last question. What is the one thing you would like to change about the world?
I think that I would love if every single person would really lead their life and live their life with an empathetic lens. I think it's really important to have empathy and understand other people's stories. Everybody has stories hidden within. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we're so quick to judge, you know, based on what we see in small snapshots of time. But when we really get to know people and they have so many layers that we can uncover. Mm-hmm. And if we all took the time to really listen to others and not just listen to people to respond, but to listen to hear. And then take time to process that. I think that's so important. And I think if everybody in the world led with that empathetic lens, we would all be a lot kinder to each other.
Absolutely.
You know?
The whole topography of humanity would be different.
Oh, I love the way you just said that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
Just rolled off my tongue.
It was gorgeous.
I try. Okay, so you're a teacher, but you are also a literacy specialist and a mentor coordinator.
Yes.
And an instructional coach.
Well, I have served in many roles in education.
You have a lot of hats.
Yes,
a lot of hats, young lady.
I have worn a lot of hats. So this is my 15th year in education, and in 15 years, I've been lucky enough to serve in many roles, from teaching assistant to classroom teacher to elementary literacy specialist to instructional coach. Now I'm at the middle school level as a literacy specialist. And I also am the mentor coordinator for my school district K to 12. So I am responsible for pairing our new teachers with fantastic mentors who will guide them and create a nice, solid foundation so that teachers can have long-lasting, beautiful careers. I'm also facilitating a lot of the professional development to support those teachers, and so that they can really bring out the best in their learners.
Yeah.
And through all those roles, I've always learned that we have to keep the children at the heart of the decision making.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
and it also taught me to really value every role within an organization. You know, we are all here to serve our students and to serve the community, and we're all in this together. So it's been quite a wonderful 15 years, and I'm grateful for every year.
That's awesome. You said that very well. Did you always want to be a teacher? Was this something that little Lauren always wanted to do?
Well, this is like a funny story. Well, it's something that was always within me because I come from a family of educators. Both my parents are educators. My grandfather, who I spoke about earlier, he was an educator at the college level. He was a law professor and a lawyer. So I always had great models in my life. And I always saw how my parents really always spoke about their students with such love and care. They were always so concerned about their social, emotional well-being. And
That's
I
hugely
loved,
important.
like, yes, and they worked in the community that we lived in. So everywhere we went, they'd be like, oh, Mr. Epstein, Mrs. Epstein, like, hi. And they would be so excited to see my parents. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I'm so glad that I have parents that, were great, inspiring teachers.
Sure.
And so that was really motivating for me. But I didn't start as an educator. I actually, when I was in college to become an educator, I was in the cosmetics industry. And so I was in the cosmetic world for 8 years, and I worked for a company, and I worked in various department stores. I was a trainer. I used to train other makeup artists.
So you were an educator even then.
Yes, I was an educator even then. And then, I was kind of missing that feeling of being around children and kids. And I went back to education, and I haven't looked back since then.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I am always very interested in people's career journeys, because some are very straight and laser focused. Like, since I was 6, I knew I wanted to be, whatever. And I was one of those people who did 49 things before I figured out I was going to be a teacher. So, I like the process of that. And as a teacher, I always have students who are asking, for advice. What do I do with this? And I'm good at this. And what kind of career should I have? And I don't know what to do with my life. And what should my major be? And, I teach high school kids. So there's all that stuff going on. And I think that they benefit from hearing our journeys as well. Because,
oh my gosh, I am such a big storyteller. I love telling stories because I love when my students tell me stories, because it creates a community of trust and respect. And having those relationships, as you know, is the foundation of everything we do.
absolutely.
Children want to learn from people they like and care about, right? And they want to know that you have a respect for them. So it's like the symbiotic relationship. So yes, I think the journey is important, and also like being there to help facilitate that journey for them and expose them to so many different ideas and topics, because we want to try to spark their passion and interest for things and pique their curiosity so that they can discover a passion for something. And that's why we're here, to support them and facilitate that work. We're not here to tell them, at least this is my perspective, what to do or what they should do.
Oh, of course. But to nurture within them the creativity and the self examination and the self-esteem to be able to work through those interests and intelligences to figure out what they want to do, giving them the tools to live a healthy life, to know that they are the ones who are responsible and it's up to them and the choices are theirs, and so on. I think it's extremely important, because you can't, and I don't think that we can take for granted that they're getting that information at home.
Yes. And I always say connection before content.
Yeah.
We have to work on that connection so that students can be open, and we remove those barriers for them to be able to learn and to be open to those things, and to also learn how to love themselves. It's like our obligation, moral, ethical obligation to bring out the best in our learners and to recognize their gifts and to elevate them and to give them recognition and celebrate them when they're doing great things, because not all of our learners might come from those homes, like you were just saying. So we have to be their advocates and their allies, right?
Absolutely. Now, I am a firm believer in the whole connection thing before content. Absolutely. How do you feel that has changed this year, since March of last year with the whole COVID thing? Do you see in your school a difference in student mental health, student attitudes, moods, fear, etc.?
Yes. there has certainly been over, it's been a little over a year now. In the very beginning, it was like we had that emergency shutdown. And at that point, we didn't really know what was
Was it
going to
be
happen.
2 weeks? Was it,
right?
We didn't know. Nobody knew anything.
And I saw the fear at that time, I think more in the adults than the kids, because I think kids kind of are more resilient than adults. So during that time,
and they probably don't have all the facts either.
Exactly.
And we didn't have sense of cause and effect of things,
Exactly. And, if you had told us then, a year later, we'd still be in this position, I think mental health would be, worse than it is now, because I think mental health has suffered a great deal during this time. But we kind of were taking this in increments, which I think was helpful to the process and to this journey. But yes, I mean, you're going from physical spaces where you're able to connect with children and have conversations with kids, with colleagues. We're used to having that energy in front of us, and doing things in those more traditional ways. And then when we went to virtual learning, it was a big change for kids and for teachers. And for families.
No warning or preparation. It was just
no.
do this.
From my lens too, I am a mom, so I was home watching my kids learn virtually as I was, at last year I was a coach. I was helping the teachers support kids. So, and my husband was home. He was also working. So in that space, that was very stressful. And it was stressful for all the families because everybody has different living environments and different living situations. So I think that initially, and then also getting devices into all of the kids' hands, because during all this time, the digital divide was kind of brought to the surface. There were always inequities, right?
Of course.
But this really brought everything to the surface. So, I have to give a big round of applause to all the school districts everywhere who worked so hard to get devices into their students' hands and families who needed them, connecting them with Wi-Fi, because
it was a
without
Herculean
that
effort. It was huge.
Yes, it was all hands on deck. And it was incredible because without those devices, there was no connection at all whatsoever. You're completely taking it away.
No.
So
I had a virtual student trying to do my class through Google Meet on her phone. I'm like, it's totally not going to work.
No, because they need to be able to manipulate the tech tools.
Right.
And also there was a transition of teachers learning a new way of teaching, right?
Right.
They had to shift their practice and roll up their sleeves and learn learning management systems, tech tools.
It was like being a second-year teacher all over again.
Yes.
Not quite as naive as a first-year teacher, because there were some processes and tools already there at my disposal, and I had my second master's in ed tech, so I was still like, Google Classroom, what,
right
it was a lot to get, and then from my own
sometimes, like, I think
curve.
a silver lining for that is that sometimes when you dive into it and you're forced to do it, you have no other choice but to do it,
Of course.
And
sink or swim.
I sink or swim. And it was a huge learning curve for us because we also had to recognize that we needed to learn so that we can connect with the students. But what I also
teach them. Yeah.
Yes. But what I also quickly learned is that, the students were teaching me things too this year. They have less fear with tech than adults, because they'll pick something up and they'll just start playing with it and they just figure it out. And that's
digital
probably
natives.
The best way to do it. Exactly. But, adults, we question things a little bit more. We want to follow the directions, But yeah, I mean, yes, there was a sense of underlying fear, but there was also, a lot of things going on. I live in a community where we have a very diverse population, and we had, you know, families in all different types of situations. So what was really most important was for my school district, and I know all the school districts everywhere, was to really check on the families to make sure that they had the necessities,
Right.
right? That they had food, that they had devices, um, that they were, you know, that their health needs were being met. There were so many moving parts to this
And all of
journey.
that takes supremacy over content. You
Oh
know,
my
if they don't have
gosh.
their basic needs being met, hello Maslow, you know,
Oh
then
yeah.
none of the learning can take place. You know, so it was a lot of
Exactly.
turmoil for the teachers and the learning curve and the stress in the middle of a pandemic or the beginning of a pandemic, and then the kids and the community and the parents, and it was
Right. And then
a
we had
lot.
families who lost their jobs because of
Right.
the shutdown, you know, and
And
all of a
families who were getting,
sudden,
if members were getting sick, and
exactly, and things we didn't even know about, I'm sure. So you do the best that you can to keep those lines of communication open with the families, but also for us to have to take care of ourselves, because as
right.
educators during that time, we were struggling as well with various things. You know, I would speak to colleagues, not just in my district, but
Mm-hmm.
from everywhere. I'm a connected educator. So I speak globally to educators,
Right.
and you know, self care was a major thing because there were very blurred lines teaching virtually at home. It was like the clock just didn't stop. We didn't know when the end was
Right.
to the day. You can be on the computer all day answering emails, speaking to parents, helping children,
Grading,
and then
giving
you
feedback, evaluating.
exactly, and then you get lost in that virtual bubble, that virtual world,
Mm-hmm.
and suddenly you look at the clock and you go, oh my gosh, like
I'm
I haven't
answering
even fed
student
my own
emails at
family yet.
11:30 at night. Right.
Yes, I haven't even spoken to my husband yet today. I haven't connected with my own children.
Mm-hmm.
So that balance was really off for a really long time.
What did you do to
And
connect it, to correct it? How did you find your own footing again?
gosh,
Assuming you have. I mean, you look very well put together, so I would imagine you
thank
have.
you. You know, Marci, it's interesting that you say that because what looks on the outside
Oh,
isn't
is
always what's going
yeah,
on the
absolutely.
inside.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, I definitely had my struggles. There were a lot of changes that happened over the
Mm-hmm.
past year, and I had to get used to having my whole family at home. My husband used to travel for work all the time. Now he was home 24/7. So I had to acclimate. We had to adjust our relationship, right?
Sure.
For him being home, and then our roles within the family,
Mm-hmm.
because I was the one taking the kids everywhere and making
And now
sure that
no
they
one's
fed.
going anywhere.
And now
Right.
no one's going anywhere, and we're both home, and things that I used to do now he's doing, or it, you know, it's just our roles kind of changed in the household. So it
Mm-hmm.
was getting used to being all together. And what does that look like now? What does family time look like now? And where do we draw the line between work and our personal life, and
Mm-hmm.
giving that attention to our own children that they needed it so much during that time? So I
So,
think
as
it
a
was
parent, how did you focus on your kids during that? I mean, what kind of guidelines did you give them, or strategies did you give them to be able to manage the big change?
right. Well, for my older one, the transition was a little bit easier because he was on Google Classroom already. So his teacher
Okay,
was
that's
already
huge.
using a lot of technology. Um, for my younger one, he was also using technology, but my younger one is different than my older one. He's
Mm-hmm.
not as independent. So we had to work out a schedule. And I would tell the teachers that my son, you know, they knew I was working, that I'm a teacher. I think communication was key. That if
Sure.
I didn't communicate to his teachers what's going on at home, and just, I can't help Ethan with his work until this time, right?
Right.
So if he's not responding or handing things in, that is because I am working. I have an obligation to my students at that time. So I think communication was big during this time. Like, I think as a mom, I had to communicate to my kids' teachers what was
Mm-hmm.
going on at home as much as I could, so that they can understand and like I said earlier, lead with that empathetic lens and
Mm-hmm.
adjust their expectations. And I think we all had to adjust our expectations
Of course.
and our norms. um, so I think that also vulnerability came in tremendously. I feel like I've learned how to be more vulnerable and show vulnerability during this time. I think it's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. You have to show that to your kids, or
Yes,
they're not going to think that that's how people feel, and there'll be too much of a
exactly.
disconnect.
Exactly. I mean, they saw when mommy was having a hard time, and, they saw when I wasn't. And I think when you're vulnerable and you're open and you're communicative about what's happening, then
Yeah.
I think that things can be worked out. I think that it was like a slow process. I think, it was like almost like we had this transition plan as a family that wasn't always discussed in detail. It just happened like gradually,
Right.
as we were dealing with COVID, as parents, as an educator. So there were so many things involved. But the good that came out of it too is we can hold on to some of these things that we found that we loved during this time as
Exactly.
well. We ate dinner together a little bit more. Maybe we went for more walks and more bike rides. And so there are some activities that maybe we didn't do as much together, maybe more movie time, that we can hold on to as a family, and bring that into our traditions now.
Yeah. And
So,
have all those shared memories and all that shared time that you wouldn't have necessarily had.
mhm.
Oops. I don't know if we could hear that. Let's take the watch off. Yeah, we'll just cut this out. Yeah, you've got all this extra time that you wouldn't necessarily have. My kids are 23 and 20, and my son is away at grad school, but he was home for the summer where he was doing an internship, and it would have been away in Maryland, and because of COVID he was doing it from my dining room table rather. And
Mhm.
my daughter, her college, her school, her classes were all online, and so she decided this semester to stay home. And so I've had all this extra time that I'm very keenly aware of because they're getting to be adults,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
wouldn't have had this time with her.
Right.
So
Right.
I
Silver
cherish every
linings.
second. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I was talking about that with my students today, silver linings. When there's a challenge, there's always something that good that's good that comes of it. But yeah, you just made me think of my niece. She was a senior last year, and she missed her graduation and her prom and her freshman year of college now. She stayed home, she's online. It just changed all of those traditions that
Everything.
we're used to. We've had to reimagine what these things look like now. And I
Yeah.
don't think it's bad to I think there's some good that comes out of it, with that, when we rethink and we reimagine what life should be and what's really important, right? What's
Yeah.
important? Happiness.
Absolutely.
Happiness and health is
That's it
important,
all comes down to that, really.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's not about money or material things, and it's about being true to yourself, having gratitude. I think gratitude is a huge thing, thinking about what you do have
Yeah.
when you go through a challenging time, and that connection. I think that going back to the original question with connection is, I think educators were trying to find so many ways to connect with
Yeah.
students
It's a
during this
struggle this year.
time.
I
It is,
find
especially with the big ones, because they don't want to turn on their cameras.
they don't want to turn their cameras. They don't want to talk. They're behind these masks and they feel like they're, gagging them. They don't want to talk. And I have a few kids, thank goodness, one or two or three in each class who are willing to talk to me. And the rest of them, if I don't call on them directly, they say nothing.
Yeah.
And it's been really hard to figure out who they are. I mean, I know their names clearly, but I don't really know much about very many of them because
You know,
the amount of connection and the sharing and the
right.
things that would go on during a normal school year and the joking and the stories and the
Yes.
it's all gone this year. It's none of that is happening.
I have to thank Dr. Mary Hemphill Joseph, who I discovered through George Couros, one of his podcasts. She is incredible. I now am connected to her, and I consider her to be a mentor and friend. She wrote a book called The 1 Minute Meeting, and she's now doing a book club with a few educators in my district. And what the 1 minute meeting is it is a time where we want to view the students as stakeholders. We want to show them that they have a voice in their learning, while also building and cultivating that connection with them so that they can be open to the learning. So she has something that she turned around a school that was struggling when she was a principal, and she decided that she was going to interview children, every single child in the school, for 1 minute, and she was going to ask them 3 questions. How are you today? What is your greatest celebration? And what challenges have you had lately? Right?
Wow.
So I took this 1 minute meeting concept and I adapted it a little bit, and I turned them into 5 minute meetings. And I've been doing this since the beginning of the year. I do it about once or twice a month, depending on how the school year is going. Now it's a little bit less that the kids are back in person. And that question of how are you today, in the beginning of the year, the kids are like, good, and like, I don't accept good. So of course I would probe them a little bit. But now there's like the evolution of that question, how are you today? Because when I say it, the kids, they start telling me their whole life story and what's happening in their life.
Because they know that you're a safe place and a safe person and that you're actually going to listen and you care.
Exactly. And I was consistent with this process. They know what the 3 questions are. So they know when I'm doing my 5 minute meetings, and, for my virtual students, I put them into individual breakout rooms and do it for privacy. For my physical students, I pull them separately, of course, socially distant, but, no one can hear. And they know exactly what to expect in these conversations. And the things that I have learned about them, anything from like, my dog died last week, to I got into a really bad fight with my parents and they're not talking to me, to, I had this girl that's bothering me in school. And that's all I can think about when I come to school. Like, think about that information that I'm getting. Exactly. Because that is impacting the way I'm approaching teaching and learning with my students. I know where my students are in what social emotional place they're in, what mental state they're in.
Yeah. If there's anything that we took away from this whole experience as teachers, is that social emotional health is paramount.
Oh my goodness. And that is a practice I will move forward. And I always thought that in my teaching, that the social emotional piece was critical. We have to look at children holistically. Right. We're here to for their academic achievement, but we're also here to maximize their social emotional growth as well. So we have to look at them holistically. And when we do practices like this, like the 5 minute meetings, what an investment in the emotional deposit box. Yeah. For kids, for teachers. This is quality time where you are able to expand your influence and have greater impact on your students. So this is something that I highly recommend for all educators. What a great investment of time.
I'm going to do it.
Yes. And I highly recommend the book. It's so awesome. And I can connect you with Dr. Hemphill anytime. Excellent. She's so wonderful. Yeah.
Excellent. So you have trained pre-service or new service teachers. What kind of guidelines do you give them about their jobs, about scheduling and prioritizing their time, about not feeling overwhelmed with the myriad of things that go on every single hour that you're in a classroom? What kinds of things do you start talking to them about when you start with them?
Well, there are so many moving parts to the teacher induction process. And this is one of the most important pieces of being part of the school system, because we want to retain great educators. We want them to have long lasting careers, and we want them to leave a legacy that touches the heart of every student that crosses their path. So those first few years are critical in setting them up with strong mentors and providing a community for them of support. So one of the things, I do many things in the mentor programs, but I'm very strategic and purposeful with every meeting that I have for these teachers. First of all, their voice and choice about how they want to learn is really important to me. So I ask them what their strengths and what their goals are at the very beginning of the year. And we keep those lines of communication open. I also invite them to share their own gifts. So I ask them in the beginning of the year, would you be willing to facilitate a session either with me, or you could do it by yourself or with somebody else in the program. I love bringing out the gifts in others. I love elevating others and giving them recognition. I think it's great for mental health, and it builds their social emotional capacity because they feel more comfortable and confident.
Their own efficacy as a teacher, their own connection with colleagues. Absolutely.
Exactly. So that's important to me. The program is also grounded in the New York State mentoring standards. And that's really important for me to know as a mentor coordinator as I plan the program. I invite not only people within our organization to speak at meetings, but I also like getting outside perspectives. So I've had a lot of guests, a lot of educators from outside of our community, presenting all different topics and ideas. And I really want to show the teachers the value of being a connected and networked educator, that we can shatter the walls of isolation and reach out.
Because this can be a very isolating career. Yeah.
Yes. And especially during this time, I haven't even met many of these teachers in person. It would be funny if I ran into them in the grocery store or something, because I've only seen them on this little screen, unless they work with me in the building that I'm in. So I really try to show them the power of using social media to learn from each other and to connect with other educators to see what's working for them so that they can impact their students' learning, and also build a network of support. There's always someone else that's going to know something you don't know.
Exactly.
So you're building this network. Of course, we want to build powerful professional learning communities within our own organizations, but we want to show the teachers that they can reach out to others too. And there are so many wonderful educators out there that want to help.
Absolutely.
And also what I did is I created a mentor program page on Twitter, and we use a hashtag, LB Leads, so that we can follow the stories of our classrooms.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's pretty cool because it keeps us connected. And then I look through that hashtag before every meeting, and I like to celebrate teacher leaders in every meeting. And I'll highlight certain tweets, and I'll ask teachers to share their practice and tell us more about this. And what's beautiful about it is that they're giving their peers and colleagues ideas, and they're using those ideas in their classroom. So they're able to collaborate and share best practices.
Right. That's everything right there.
It's everything. And one thing we don't have to worry about anymore, I think, is we always have these virtual spaces where we can connect if logistics get in the way. Right. Because sometimes with district meetings and you're trying to get coverage and you're trying to get everyone in one space, there are so many moving parts to that process. The one nice thing about virtual meetings, other than
you don't have to travel anywhere. Right.
Exactly. Even though I do miss being in person. If I had to choose, I would pick in person or do a mix of both,
Sure.
maybe in person and virtual,
But
because
it
it
lets
is a lot
teachers from
easier.
different districts across states, across counties, across the country to share and connect and motivate and inspire each
Absolutely.
other. We couldn't do that before Google Meet and Zoom and all of these teleconferencing
Absolutely.
technologies.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I mean, if we didn't take the meetings virtually, I wouldn't have had all of the guests that I've had now
Yeah,
in these meetings. And it's just been an incredible experience. And for me, it's never about me. It's always about these new teachers and how can I support them? And how can we create a network so that these educators can turn into the great educators? They're already great educators, because I have to tell you, new teachers are, it's a symbiotic relationship with
mm-hmm.
the mentors and the mentees, because the new teachers know all of these practices that the more veteran teachers might not be aware of. But then the veteran teachers are sharing all this wisdom from
Nice.
having that experience. So this relationship is symbiotic in nature, and we're learning from one another. You know, I view everyone in a school system as a learner, including the teachers. We're learners too.
Absolutely. I learn from my students every damn day.
Exactly. So this program is very near and dear to my heart. I think that I'm so honored that my school district invests in this program, because I think the return on investment, there's no price you can really put on it, because these teachers, when you have happy teachers who are confident in
Mm-hmm.
what they do, that positive energy is contagious, and that impacts our students, our learners. Those are the
Absolutely.
most important people in the school
That's what
organization.
we're
That
all
is why
here
we're
for.
here.
Right.
Exactly. That's why we're all here. So it's so important. You know, my friend Stephanie Rothstein, she's brilliant. You should follow her on social media. She's wonderful. She always says that she wants to make education less competitive and more collaborative. And I just think it's brilliant, that little phrase.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be a competition. We're here for children. You know, I remember years ago, I used to compete even. I'm going to blame it on myself for who has the best bulletin board, right? Like when I worked in the city, it was like we had to put up these beautiful bulletin boards, and the kids' work had to be perfect, and the performance task had to be up, and the teachers all had pop outs on their bulletin board. Let me tell you something. Me today can care less about those things
Right.
because that's not what it's about,
No.
you know. But it's funny how in different stages of our career, you know, we definitely evolve. You know, it's like the evolution. So I always want to. I'm always so. I want to share. I want to share my stories, my journey. I want other educators to share their stories and their journey, so that these new teachers can have different perspectives
Absolutely.
um, on life, on teaching, and also to understand that first and foremost, self care. My gosh, I was hospitalized my first year of teaching because I never went
Really?
to the bathroom.
Oh my God. You had a
I had
kidney
a kidney
infection or something.
infection. They said to me, you know, I woke up with like this severe back pain one night. And of course, my husband is like in flight to California. And I'm like literally crying in pain.
Oh,
I call up my brother-in-law because I didn't want to upset my parents. And I said, listen, you have to come over and take me to the hospital. I think something's wrong with me. That's how painful it was.
wow.
And when they said to me, oh, we're admitting you, honey, I said, oh, no, you can't admit me. I'm a first year teacher. I have to be at school tomorrow.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. You're not going anywhere. Your white
Lauren's
count is like
kidneys
through the
had
roof.
another thing in mind. Yeah.
So, you know, it, that's a great story. I also gave the Heimlich maneuver, like in my first few years of teaching. It's like all these things that
Mm-hmm.
we don't learn, you know, in college when we're going to be teachers. You know, we're in the field.
My first year, they threw me into directing the middle school musical.
Oh, wow.
So I was hired to teach seventh grade English, but a brand new writing program that we sort of wrote the curriculum for on the fly. There was no textbook, there was no money for materials, and yet they wanted us to move mountains. And in between all of that, I'm directing the musical, and I was so overwhelmed and so exhausted. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I remember standing on stage trying to block a number, telling which group of kids is going to move which direction, and the music is playing, the piano player's playing the music, and I'm backing up, walking towards the edge of the stage as the kids are walking toward me. Like I'm facing them and they're facing the audience. Mm-hmm. And then I was so into what I was doing that I didn't realize I was at the edge of the stage, and I kept walking and fell off the stage backwards and landed on my back in the orchestra pit.
Oh my gosh. Were you okay?
I was bruised and sprained my neck, gosh. But it could have been so much worse.
I'm picturing this all happening only because I'm a theater person myself. I was in all the plays in high school, so like I know I can picture this happening. Oh,
it's so funny. It's funny now. It wasn't funny then. It was a long time ago, but
it's all these little.
When we're overwrought and exhausted and really focused on keeping juggling all the balls and keeping them in the air, it is very easy to lose track of ourselves.
Yes.
Because we want to do such a good job for our kids, and we take it so seriously. I always had this image, like I'm going to be teaching for 30 years. And so one group of kids kind of melds into every other group of kids to a degree. But that 10th grade student sitting in my English class, I'm their only shot at a 10th grade English class. And so while that student may be 1 in 3,000 or 4,000 by the end of my career, I'm her only 10th grade English teacher. So I've taken that very seriously. You have 180 chances to make an impact. And that's
That is powerful. That right there is powerful. Every single interaction, big and small, matters. Your words matter. Words are powerful. Absolutely. Your body language is powerful. Children know, kids know when you like them, when you're there to support them, when your heart is there for them, and they know when it's not.
Absolutely.
So you said that so beautifully, 180 days to make an impact or something. Is that what you said?
Yeah,
you said
you have 180 chances.
Chances,
relatively,
I
mean, most school districts are 180 days, but
I'm going to use that in my meeting this week. Is that okay? My mentor meeting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. As we wind down,
a job that I've always taken extremely seriously. And I was in a bunch of careers before I became a teacher, and I always had this idea that from the bottom of my lesson plan to every single handout I hand out, to every interaction I have with the kids, that they deserved the most professional, the most put together, well thought out assignments, interactions, experience from me. And it's been, I can't even tell you, how rewarding this career can be as you see your kids grow and learn and become themselves in better, richer ways.
It is a privilege.
It's extraordinary.
It is a privilege and an honor to be an educator. And I tell the new teachers that, when you are hired by a school district, they are putting, they are giving you that voice to empower our learners, our children. We're making an impact on them for the rest of their lives. How do you want to be remembered?
And they're not just numbers. They're not just test scores. They're someone's cherished little baby,
somebody's whole world.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So it's a major job to be impacting and influencing the lives of students and learners. A lot of people say they're, our leaders of tomorrow, but I feel like, why can't they be the leaders of today?
Absolutely.
I see kids today doing such incredible things and sharing their voice with the world and innovating and creating. And, they're the teachers of today and tomorrow.
Absolutely. Really. Businesses, entrepreneurship, philanthropy.
Yes.
medical discoveries, all sorts of things are happening with kids nowadays. And
exactly. Let me tell you something. I don't remember one lesson like a teacher ever taught me, but
no,
like Maya
nor do I.
Angelou said, you remember how people make you feel.
Mm-hmm.
You remember experiences. Like I remember being in all the high school plays, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
remember being in Battle of the Classes. I remember, you know, writing for our school magazine and newspaper. Like those were the things I was passionate about. So that's what I remember. So
Yeah.
our job is to really develop and bring out those passions in our learners, like I said earlier, so
Absolutely.
that they can remember and have those experiences. You know, we create the path for them, we open that path, and then they can choose their way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then we're there to guide them. And you know, we want to see them be independent and go off and, you know, make good choices and, you know, change their course if they need to and be
Absolutely.
okay with that, because there's a lot of that too. We don't all, you know, it's not linear. The
No.
process learning is not linear. The world is not linear. It's messy.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to, you know, make approximations, and we're going to have to come up with different solutions to our destination, right? But if we have a destination, we can always figure out a route. You know, we might change
Exactly.
our course, you know, and we have to just get the right people on our bus too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Jim Collins says, I love Jim Collins, Good to Great, you know, who's on your bus? Get the right people on your bus who are going to support you and bring out the best in you, right?
Yeah.
And who are going to, you know, you want to mirror those qualities that you see in other people and take a little bit from all those people to become you.
Right.
But a better version, you know?
What's that saying? You are the product or average of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I don't
like
know the exact quote, but yes.
But something like that. Choose your friends, choose your colleagues, choose your associates wisely, because you are them, sort of.
We function on a feeling level,
Mm-hmm.
not an analytic level. Like that's how we fundamentally function
Yes.
as human beings.
Absolutely.
Right. So, yes, like having a cheering section behind you is so important, not only in your professional life, but in your personal life too. People who are going to support you. And when you're there and you mess up, you know, they're still loving you.
Absolutely. And they have your back
you.
and cheer you on again. I heard somebody speaking a couple of weeks ago about this concept of creating a board of directors for your own life. Like you are a corporation in a way. And like, who would you, it's probably the same kind of concept as who's on your bus, you know, who's on your personal life board of directors. You know, it's interesting to think about. So that person, those people are going to help motivate you. They're going to help support you. They're going to help you problem solve. They're going to help you, you know, figure out and negotiate the highs and the lows in your life, as you will do for them. A nice, supportive, symbiotic kind of thing.
Yes. And I think we also have to recognize that the people that you start with aren't necessarily the people you grow with.
Absolutely.
And I have to give Simon Sinek credit for that, because I think I heard him in a Brene Brown podcast say that. And it was so, when I heard that, it was powerful, because you have to respect the people on the journey, right? And those connections that you have made from your past impact your future.
Right.
So you need to value those connections that have brought you to the point you are at today, right? So you might grow with different people, but you hold on and value the past.
Exactly.
Because it impacted the future. So, yeah.
You might not be meant to walk side by side for more than a short time, but
correct.
But the impact that we make on each other's lives is lifelong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's through like, it's a positive and a negative lens too, because if the people who've negatively impacted your life, you know,
of course,
I look at them as important people too in my life, because you learn about what you don't want for yourself through that process. You learn that you don't connect to certain energies, that it's not good for you.
Right.
But you need that in your life to appreciate the true connections that you do make over the
Of
course of
course.
time.
And even
So,
those negative, in quotes, relationships do teach you about yourself. And you learn resilience, and you learn flexibility, and you learn strength, and how to create healthy boundaries for yourself, and
true.
how to foster better relationships, but also how to deal with problematic ones. I mean, that's a skill in
Yes.
itself.
And you know what else I've been really obsessed with lately is toxic positivity. Have
Oh
you
my
looked
God,
into this
yes.
concept?
Yes.
Because you could sometimes have people in your life that like they think everything's great. They wear rose-colored glasses and they're not being honest with you about what's really happening. And when
Right.
they're too positive, that's not good either. I think it's important like to meet people where they are, validate their feelings, right, from a social emotional standpoint, and help them make choices or help them embrace where they are so that they can get to the next wherever they need to be.
Makes
Right.
sense. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Wow. Well, this has been great.
yeah, I hope that you know it was what you hoped for. I know we talked a lot about a lot of different things today.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, ooh, I have a lot of notes here. We'll cut this little piece out. What do you want to publicize something? Do you have something going on? No.
Um, I can publicize. Well, I write. I have a blog, which is pretty widely read, especially the blog about my mentor. Mentorship Matters.
Okay.
So, I mean, I do a lot of different things, but my blog right now is my main platform because that's where I share my learning about all different things. So to impact,
Would you
student
want
achievement.
more people to read that? Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would
Okay.
be awesome. I've also recently written chapters for educational books, but they haven't been published yet, so I can't talk about it yet.
Yeah.
That'll be awesome. I'm in a book called Because of a Teacher, and George Couros is publishing it.
Nice.
So it's with a bunch of educators who I highly regard and respect. And
Congratulations.
we're
That's
sharing
huge.
thank you. We're sharing our stories about who has impact. One section is what teacher has impacted you. Another is what administrator, and what advice would you give your first year teacher self. So
Nice.
it's kind of like a chicken soup book,
Right.
chicken soup for the soul kind of book. So it was fun to kind of tell that story, but it's not going to be out till September. I'm excited about that though.
That's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did an Authority magazine interview. What are the 5 most essential things you need to be an educator? And that was a difficult one to write. To boil it down to 5 things, and there were a bunch of questions I had to answer. So I think it came out pretty well. I think.
Oh, I want to check that out. I'd like to know.
Yeah,
I'd like to read your book too.
Oh yeah,
Put that on the list.
It's available everywhere books are sold online.
Awesome.
So tell me about your blog.
So my blog is me sharing my learning and my voice with other educators and with the world. And actually, George Couros is the one he was actually the book we used for my mentor program last year. We used the Innovator's Mindset. And when I connected with him, he really encouraged me to have my own platform for writing. So I took his course, I developed a website on my own, and I blog pretty consistently, but I also share a lot of teacher resources on there to help educators help their students. So anything I create, it's not just for myself and my own learners, but I look at it as helping the greater community.
Nice.
I like to serve others and help others be successful. So I share anything from strategies, literacy strategies, to stuff about mentorship, to just pieces like things I'm thinking about. Like during COVID, it was about transitioning and you know, also like inquiry and just my thoughts, and ideas that I share with the world. So it's nice because I've connected actually through the Innovators Mindset hashtag. I connected with a global educator, Naomi Toland, who's amazing. And I'm a co-host on her podcast now on
Nice.
Empathetic Educators Live, where we interviewed different authors from around the world. And that's been great. So George has connected me with so many different people, and has given me so many opportunities of my own.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so thank you. It's only been like a little over a year now. So it's exciting. It's exciting to be in that space and connect with so many wonderful people who are it's like a family,
Yeah.
It's like people who are kind of like-minded, but I also like people who push me out of my comfort zone too. I like people who see things in different ways and get me to think differently. Because there's that saying, great minds think alike, but they also think differently too. So.
And there's the adverb.
Yes, there it is.
Very nice. Well, this has been wonderful, Lauren. Thank you so much for being with us today and having this fabulous conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure chatting with you today.
Likewise.